I utterly condemn the far-right thuggery we've seen this weekend. Be in no doubt, those that have participated in this violence will face the full force of the law. The police will be making arrests, individuals will be held on remand, charges will follow, and convictions will follow.
Starmer's progressive counteroffensive, the battle for Britain's soul. Right. Before we dive into what might be the most crucial political battle of our generation, do us a favor and hit that subscribe button. Trust me, you'll want to stay ahead of the curve on this one, and UK Connors is your front row seat to the Westminster Theatre that never stops delivering drama. Now, let's get into it. Britain stands at a crossroads, and Keir Starmer has just thrown down the gauntlet. The Prime Minister isn't merely responding to political opposition anymore. He's launching what can only be described as progressive counteroffensive against what he calls a decline in division fostered by the far right. This isn't your typical political posturing. Folks, this is a declaration of war for the very soul of modern Britain. Picture this: a 9-year-old black girl shot in a racist assault, Chinese takeaways vandalized simply for existing, and communities living in fear because of the color of their skin or their faith. Starmer's words cut through the Westminster bubble like a blade. That sends a shiver down the spine of every right-minded person. We are not this. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Apparently, some corners of Britain have become exactly this. The catalyst for Starmer's counteroffensive wasn't just another political disagreement. It was a deafening silence from Number 10 when faced with a nationalist march unite the kingdom 2 weeks prior. Picture the scene. Far-right agitators marching through British streets, endorsed by none other than Elon Musk and Tommy Robinson, while Downing Street seemed to twiddle its thumbs. MPs weren't just frustrated, they were furious. The optics were devastating, and Starmer knew it. When The Guardian received that harshly worded statement from the Prime Minister declaring that the UK would never surrender its flag to far-right agitators, it wasn't just political rhetoric. It was a line in the sand, drawn with the blood of communities under attack and the tears of parents afraid to let their children play outside because of the color of their skin. But let's be brutally honest about what we're witnessing here. This isn't just about counter-protests or strongly worded statements. Starmer is attempting something far more ambitious and infinitely more dangerous politically. He's trying to reclaim the narrative of British identity itself. For years, the far right has been allowed to co-opt patriotism, to wrap themselves in the Union Jack whilst promoting division and hatred. Starmer's message is clear: not on my watch. The Prime Minister's strategy reveals itself most clearly in his recent cabinet meeting, where he took direct aim at Nigel Farage and the politics of perpetual grievance. Ministers needed to be very clear about what we're up against, Starmer warned, before delivering what might be the most cutting political analysis we've heard from Downing Street in years. He identified those who profit from the politics of grievance and those who do not want issues resolved because solving problems would make their politics, rationale for being, and ideology become irrelevant to our culture. That's not just political commentary. That's a surgical strike at the heart of populist strategy. Starmer has identified the fundamental contradiction in far-right politics. They need problems to remain unsolved to justify their existence. It's a parasitic relationship with British society, feeding off division and decay whilst offering no genuine solutions. Think about the implications of what Starmer is proposing. He's not just fighting policy battles or trading barbs across the dispatch box. He's attempting to fundamentally reshape how Britain sees itself and its future. This is about whether we're a country that turns inward, suspicious and divided, or one that faces outward, confident in our diversity and strength. The timing of this counteroffensive is no accident. Britain is experiencing what many describe as a cost-of-living crisis, with communities feeling abandoned and forgotten. It's precisely in these moments of vulnerability that extremist narratives take root. The far right offers simple answers to complex problems. Blame the other, fear the different, retreat into nostalgia for a Britain that never quite existed as I remember it. Starmer's approach is fundamentally different and considerably more challenging. Instead of offering easy scapegoats, he's demanding that Britain look in the mirror and decide what kind of country it wants to be. It's a high-risk strategy because it requires nuance in an age of sound bites, complexity in an era that craves simplicity. The loutish behavior on the streets that Starmer referenced isn't happening in a vacuum. It's a physical manifestation of years of political rhetoric that has normalized hatred and division. When political leaders dog whistle about immigration, when they treat refugees as invaders rather than human beings seeking safety, when they allow conspiracy theories to fester unchallenged, this is the inevitable result. But here's where Starmer's counteroffensive gets interesting, and frankly, where it gets dangerous for his opponents. He's not just offending multiculturalism or progressive values in abstract terms. He's making it personal. That 9-year-old girl, those vandalized takeaways, those communities living in fear, these aren't statistics or talking points. They are the human cost of political cowardice and extremist pandering. The response from the far right has been predictably hysterical. Tommy Robinson and his ilk are doubling down, claiming they are the true patriots while Starmer is somehow betraying British values. It's a narrative that might have worked 5 years ago, but increasingly looks hollow when set against the reality of burning buildings and children afraid to walk to school. What makes this counteroffensive particularly potent is Starmer's background. This isn't a career politician or privileged Westminster insider making these arguments. This is a former director of public prosecutions who spent years dealing with the real-world consequences of hatred and division. When Starmer talks about the rule of law and community cohesion, he's not theorizing. He's drawing on decades of experience seeing what happens when societies fracture. The international context makes Starmer's stance even more significant. Across Europe and beyond, we're witnessing the rise of authoritarian populism. From Trump's America to Orban's Hungary, the playbook is always the same. Exploit fear, divide communities, undermine institutions, and promise simple solutions to complex problems. Starmer is positioning Britain as a bulwark against this tide, but success is far from guaranteed. The economic argument underpinning this counteroffensive is equally compelling. Modern Britain's prosperity depends on being open to the world, in trade, in talent, in ideas. The far-right's vision of Fortress Britain, suspicious of foreigners and closed to change, isn't just morally bankrupt, it's economically suicidal. Starmer understands that progressive values aren't just the right thing to do, they're the smart thing to do. But let's not pretend this will be easy. The forces arrayed against Starmer's vision are formidable and well-funded. They have their own media ecosystem, their own social media networks, and their own version of events that cast them as the victims and Starmer as the aggressor. The battle for public opinion, the role of social media in this fight cannot be underestimated. When Elon Musk endorses far-right marches in Britain, he's not just expressing an opinion, he's weaponizing one of the world's most powerful communication platforms. Starmer's counteroffensive will need to be as sophisticated online as it is in Parliament and on the streets. What's particularly clever about Starmer's approach is how he's reframing the debate around British values. Instead of allowing the far right to monopolize patriotism, he's offering an alternative vision of what it means to love your country. True patriotism, Starmer argues, means protecting all of your fellow citizens, not just those who look like you or share your faith. It means building a society where a 9-year-old can play safely regardless of the color of her skin. This isn't just about winning the next election, though that's obviously important. This is about the kind of society Britain becomes over the next generation. Will we be a country that turns its back on the world, consumed by fear and nostalgia? Or will we be a confident, outward-looking nation that sees diversity as strength rather than threat? The stakes couldn't be higher, and the outcome is far from certain. Starmer's progressive counteroffensive represents perhaps the last, best hope for a different kind of politics, one based on hope rather than fear, unity rather than division, progress rather than retreat. But it will require more than just political rhetoric. It will require ordinary Britons to reject the siren call of easy answers and embrace the harder path of building a genuinely inclusive society. The far right has had years to embed their narrative in British political discourse. Starmer's counteroffensive is ambitious, necessary, and fraught with risk. Whether it succeeds may well determine not just who governs Britain, but what kind of country Britain becomes. The battle for Britain's soul has begun, and we're all combatants whether we like it or not. This is a defining political moment of our time, and UK Connors will be here to dissect every move, every countermove, and every consequence. Because understanding this battle isn't just about following politics, it's about understanding the future of our country. Don't forget to subscribe, because this story is far from over, and you won't want to miss what comes next.